It is now 9:03, and I would like to call to order, please, the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee of Thursday, April 24, 2023. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to my colleagues and everyone joining us here in person, as well as those listening in on the phone. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you have not already done so, please let Thomas in the back of the room or Justine on the phone line, let them both know what items you would like to speak on today. Madam Secretary, please begin by calling the roll.
Thank you. Let's start with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Parr is absent. Director Rabbit is absent. Director Thier.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Maston is absent. Chair Garbarino.
Here.
Thank you. And President Thierio.
Here.
Thank you. You are not quite a quorum yet, but you do have other directors here present. And what you can do is you can appoint everyone also here to be pro tem members of BNL, if you would like, since we have Directors Hill, we have Directors Giudice, and also we're down, also here. Here.
Perfect.
So we can appoint everyone.
And that would bring us to a quorum.
Correct.
Okay, does that require a motion, or can we just go forward and do
You're
that?
the chair. You can go ahead and appoint them.
Done.
Done.
Perfect. So we can
There
move
we go.
forward. Wonderful. Good news.
That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And after our discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located at the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. We will begin with agenda item number 3, which is to approve actions relative to award of contract number 2022-B-114, Golden Gate Bridge Toll Plaza Pavement Overlay to Argonaut Constructors. The staff report begins on page 3, and District Engineer Ava Bauer-Furbush is here to present the report. Good morning, Ava. Please begin.
Chair Garbarino, members of the committee, agenda item, the staff report under agenda item number 3 presents staff recommendation regarding an award of construction contract number 2022-114 Golden Gate Bridge Toll Plaza Pavement Overlay to Argonaut Constructors of Santa Rosa, California, in an amount of $3,024,389. Also, the recommendation includes establishing a construction contingency for this contract in the amount of $453,000. This is equal to 15% of the contract award amount, and increasing the fiscal year 2022-23 Bridge Division capital budget for the project Toll Plaza Pavement Overlay by $627,389 for a revised total project budget of $4 million. Existing Golden Gate Bridge Toll Plaza asphalt concrete roadway pavement is in poor condition. To remedy this, engineering staff prepared design plans and construction bid documents for a construction contract to rehabilitate the pavement by removing and replacing approximately 4 inches of the existing AC roadway pavement in both the northbound and southbound lanes, between the bridge south abutment and the Lincoln Boulevard undercrossing, and replacing it with the new overlay. Also, the construction work will include removal of pylon tube mounting sleeves that were not removed during the installation of the movable median barrier, striping and pavement delineation, installation of new magnetometer vehicle sensor nodes that will provide traffic counts, construction traffic control, concrete pavements, fall and expansion joint repair at the north and south sides of the toll booth, and finally Lincoln Boulevard undercrossing concrete beam and spall repairs. The contract was advertised for bids on January 31st, 2023. As part of the advertisement, a courtesy message notifying disadvantaged small businesses was sent to approximately 492 email addresses. On the bid opening date of March 14, 2023, the district received 2 bids. The apparent low bidder was Argonaut Constructors of Santa Rosa, California, with the bid of $3,024,389. And the apparent second low bidder was Gelati Brothers of San Rafael, California, with the bid of $3,098,788. The engineering staff, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Administrator, and attorney evaluated the bid proposals. A small business enterprise contract specific goal of 8.9% was established for this contract. The DBE program administrator has determined that Argonaut Constructors has complied with the DBE SBE program requirements. At this time, SBE participation of 12.1%, that includes 10.7% DBE participation, is anticipated during performance of this contract. Engineering staff performed cost analysis of the bids. The 2 construction bids proposals are within 6% of the engineer's estimate and are very close to one another. Basically, the difference is only about 2.5%. Engineering staff has determined that Argonaut Constructors' pricing for the work is fair and reasonable. The engineering staff and attorney reviewed the bid proposals for completeness and conformance with the bid solicitation requirements and determined that Argonaut Constructors, with a bid price of $3,024,389, was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Staff recommends award of contract 22B114 to Argonaut Constructors as presented in this staff report. The district has received a bid protest from the second bidder, and the district attorney will now present results of his review of the protest and his recommendation regarding the contract award.
Thank you. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much. I'll take this opportunity to introduce you to Nicole Witt, an incredibly important member of our legal staff that supports the district. And Nicole, if you would handle the protest.
Of course. So, as you all heard, the district received a timely bid protest from Gelati Brothers earlier this week on April 24th. Gelati Brothers claims that Argonaut Constructors' bid is non-responsive due to the following deficiencies: a failure to provide unit price on certain bid items, a failure to list an electrical subcontractor, inconsistent or inaccurate descriptions of subcontractor scopes of work, a mathematical error in calculation of the DBE amount, and the failure to list any rejected subcontractors on its DBE form, a failure to designate a subcontractor to perform certain concrete scopes of work, and finally, Gelati Brothers claims that Argonaut Constructors is non-responsible for incorrectly listing the bid name of its subcontractor and listing incomplete business addresses for those subcontractors. The district reached out to Argonaut Constructors, and Argonaut Constructors provided a timely response and refuted all of Gelati Brothers' allegations in its bid protest. A copy of both the bid protest and the response from Argonaut is available to you all. So the framework that we look at when we're considering a bid protest is that the district is required to award this contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Under this rubric, the test for responsiveness is really whether or not the bid conforms to the requirements of the solicitation. And it is a well-established principle of public contracting that bids must conform to specifications, and if a bid does not so conform, it may not be accepted. However, if it is further established that a bid which substantially conforms to the call of the bids may, though not strictly responsive, be accepted if the variance cannot have affected the amount of the bid or given the bidder an advantage or benefit not allowed to other bidders, or in other words, if the variance is inconsequential. The evaluation of responsibility is more nuanced and complex, and it really is asking the question of whether or not the bidder demonstrated the attribute of trustworthiness, quality, ability to perform the public works contract. Upon review of the protest here, staff determined that 3 of the claims were not deficiencies at all, and that the remaining 3 were minor deficiencies that may be waived by the district. Additionally, legal counsel found that Galati presented a legally insufficient argument, a legally insufficient basis for finding that Argonaut was a non-responsible bidder in this case. So I can walk through the claims that they laid out in the protest and staff's review and response. So with regard to the failure to list certain bid price items, staff determined that the solicitation did not require a unit price for every bid item, and that Argonaut's bid substantially complied with the solicitation requirements. So the instances in which Argonaut failed to list a unit price were instances where the district had already designated that for that bid item, the estimated quantity was 1. Therefore, with estimated quantity of 1, lump sum pricing, the unit price is the same as the bid item price. It's unnecessary to list the unit price, or as described in the solicitation, it's inapplicable and not required. The second claim is that the bid is deficient because Argonaut described subcontractor work relative to the removal of pylon mounting sleeves and expansion joint repairs as saw cutting. And Galati claims that this work has nothing to do with saw cutting. Staff disagrees with this assertion. Both bid items involve saw cutting, and in fact, in the description in the solicitation, one of the bid items actually called out the saw cutting work. Galati also claimed that Argonaut improperly described a subcontractor's scope of work as CAS, CAS, and traffic control on one bid form, when the same subcontractor was listed for construction area signs and removal and replacement of portable delineator bid items on another form. Staff found this not to be a deficiency because CAS is an acronym for construction area signs, and removal and replacement of portable delineators is a form of traffic control. So scopes are consistent and it really started throughout the bid. Galati claims that Argonaut does not self-perform concrete work, and therefore it should have listed a concrete subcontractor for that work. The district has determined that Argonaut is qualified to perform the work, and Argonaut has confirmed that it will self-perform this concrete work. So again, not a deficiency. Moving on to the minor irregularities that the district may waive. Galati argued that Argonaut should be found non-responsive because it failed to list an electrical subcontractor for the furnishing and installation of the magnetometer vehicle sensor nodes. Argonaut responded that it has a quote from an electrical subcontractor for a portion of this bid item, but under the rules of the solicitation and under the applicable law for listing subcontractors, it was not required to include that subcontractor in that quote in its bid. The district agrees with this determination. And then I would also add that while it wasn't raised by Galati in its protest, the Argonaut should have included that subcontractor on the DBE form, but that is also a minor irregularity that may be waived by the district. As you all heard, Argonaut is, in its bid, it proposed DBE participation in an amount of 12.1%, which exceeds the contract amount or the contract goal here. And so the failure to list that subcontractor is with minor irregularity. It won't affect the amount of the bid, and it doesn't affect their obligations under the district's diversity program. The fifth claim deficiency is a $1,400 mathematical error in the calculation of the amount of work that will be performed by the DBE subcontractors. Additionally, Galati suggests that Argonaut's failure to list any rejected subcontractors doesn't comply with the requirements of the solicitation. These are minor irregularities that may be waived by the district. As I mentioned, Argonaut has in its bid included DBE participation in the amount of 12.1%. It's important to know that the miscalculation here of just $1,400 doesn't actually change that percentage. So it's not substantive to that number that you heard reported. And then it also, as I said, doesn't affect the amount of the bid, their obligations under the district's diversity program. All of that remains the same. The failure to list rejected subcontractors, similarly a waivable irregularity, because the purpose for collecting that information is for the district to get a sense of the scope of all of the DB and non-DB subcontractors that are participating on its projects. Doesn't affect the bid price, doesn't affect the obligations under the program. It's really more of an information gathering tool for the district. And finally, Galati claims that Argonaut incorrectly listed the business name for its subcontractor, Bayline Cutting and Coring Inc., as Bayline Saw Cutting, and that it listed incomplete business addresses for its subcontractors. So in this case, staff found that the correct subcontractor name was listed on a separate form or on a different form. Complete addresses were listed on a different form. So where incomplete information may have been provided on one form but was found on another, that's a waivable irregularity. Doesn't affect the amount of the bid, importantly, does not affect the bidder's obligations under the law related to not, permitting any kind of bid shopping of subcontractors or substituting of subcontractors. And then lastly, Galati describes this particular issue as an issue of responsibility rather than responsiveness. So again, that kind of nuanced, complex analysis. And we find that these minor irregularities do not implicate Argonaut's trustworthiness to perform the work of the contract, and that this would be a legally insufficient basis for finding Argonaut to be a non-responsive bidder, or responsible bidder, excuse me. So based on that analysis, staff's recommendation is that the committee recommend that the board reject the bid protest from Galati Brothers. Under the district's rules, Galati Brothers has the opportunity to come and present evidence in support of its appeal. I think they'll have an opportunity to do so right after this presentation. Argonaut similarly can respond. After full consideration of all of that evidence, the committee can make its recommendation. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Wonderful. Let me just thank her and Ava and Kim as well for that. And we can take your question now if you'd like, Sabrina. I'm also going to ask if there's anyone here from the contracting community, but you go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for your comprehensive report. I had probably 4 or 5 questions floating in my head, and by the time you were finished, I'm down to 1 or 2. So thank you very much, and it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
A couple of things. I suppose my first question is with regard to, and this is maybe it's just sort of a thought to share, and that is, it seems like there was a different viewpoint between contractors. One contractor felt like they needed to provide a certain amount of specific information that was not provided by the other contractor, and that was the basis of their claim. So I'm wondering whether there may be some way that we could tighten up some instructions in our procurement process, our procurement forms, our contracts. That's just a thought. The other thing is with regard to the point 2 that I'm looking at on the first page of this, what was provided here for us this morning. I wish I had more time to look at it, but the item 2 was regard to the attachment E with the claim as to the electrical subcontractor. I understand that in my work, this is absolutely correct. 0.5% of the total bid amount. So if the bid amount for the electrical work was under 0.5%, then yes, it doesn't have to be listed. I'm wondering, but you did say that there was a subcontractor that is going to participate on the project. Is that electrical subcontractor? Did we find that electrical subcontractor is properly licensed and capable of performing that work?
If I could jump in, whether or not an electrical contractor is required is something that we believe is not germane to this issue, because there's no electrical wiring, there's no circuit boards or panels involved. It's a static device that's inserted into a hole in the pavement. So under DRR rules, we do not believe that electrical craft classification is involved. We're encouraged that Argonaut, the parent low bidder, did list someone to do that work, but it's not necessary.
So this is an electrical device. So the word so I understand that there may be a supply. It's more of a supplier, possibly that there might be an issue as to one of the identified subcontractors for this electrical scope is more of a supplier. But I did hear the word installation.
So there's a hole, and you basically drop it in the hole. Ava's got a picture of the device. So there's no wires. It's a magnetometer. So a car going over it generates an electrical signal. that then is sent wirelessly
So it's a wireless.
is a wireless device that sits in the pavement.
I see.
And so under DRO rules, it does not require an electrical craft classification to install it. The fact that the contractor is interested in having an electrical sub to it is probably of interest, but it's not legally required by Department of Industrial Relations craft classification determination.
Okay, this is helpful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ava, for passing out a
Yes, that
picture of what the
was,
device is.
Awesome, she's prepared. And the other thing, with regard to the listing of the subcontractors or non-listing of, or listing of the rejected subcontractors, is there any connection to our procurement process whereby we do that so that we can verify we don't have any good faith effort kind of thing that would trigger that requirement to list a rejected contractor? It's specifically related to our being able to collect data on DBEs. Did I understand you correctly?
So the issue here doesn't get to the issue of good faith efforts
Right,
because
okay.
the DBE administrator found that this contractor exceeded the DBE goal. So when we consulted with staff to work through our response on this one, the feeling was really that information in this context is to supplement what the district understands in terms of who are the subcontractors that are bidding on projects with DBE and non-DBE. That's why that information is requested, but not because it has a substantive impact on pricing or evaluation of their compliance with the diversity program rules.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, thanks. All right, then. I will go through the exercise of asking if there's a representative here from Ghilotti Brothers who would like to present evidence in support of the appeal.
We don't see anyone in the room, but I'm going to ask Justine. Justine, can you poll your phone line to see if there's a representative from Gelati on the phone line, please?
Certainly. Good morning. I'd like to poll to see if there's anybody who has public comments on this item and anyone from Gelati that might be present this morning. Please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know.
Is she polling? Okay, so she's polling.
Again, press ** to unmute yourself.
David Pilpel, I did have some brief public comment on this.
I know, David, thanks. Yes, I have you listed. I'm looking for someone from Gelati in particular. Thank you.
Not with Gelati. Thanks.
Is there anybody who's joined us who would like to speak on this item? And is there anyone here from Gelati on the public line? Please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know.
So I'm guessing I'm not hearing any? We can't hear
There
her.
is,
That's all. Okay, Justine,
They're having a hard time hearing me.
there you go.
Hold
Sorry
on one
about that.
second. There you are. Yes, there is nobody on from Gelati, and we only have David Pilpel for this item when you're ready.
Okay, so David wants to speak on this item?
He does.
Okay, great. So we have no from Gelati
Okay.
on the line.
Okay, thank you. And I'll now ask if there is also, just as a matter of course, a representative for Argonaut who would like to address the protest allegations.
Got it. We have no one in the room from Argonaut. Justine, was there anyone that expressed interest from Argonaut that wanted to speak?
Nobody spoke up, Amarat. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I'll ask if there are any other questions or comments from anyone here on this committee. Seeing none, that concludes the discussion on item number 3. But before we take our vote, we know that we have at least one person from the public that wishes to speak.
Correct. Justine, I believe you said David Pilpel is on the line, wants to speak on this item?
I did. David, please go ahead.
Great. You can hear me okay?
Yes,
We can hear
Go
you
ahead.
fine.
Okay. Thanks, David Pilpel. It was a little difficult to hear Ava and the staff report. Perhaps there's only one mic in the room, and I don't know. Anyway, I got enough of it. I was unsure after reading the staff report when this area was last repaved. I don't think that was in the staff report. It would be good to have a map and photos, as with other projects in particular on something like this, to show the project limits. I know that there are some issues as to where the line is between the district's jurisdiction for roadway and Caltrans jurisdiction. And so I was interested in seeing the project limits. I also wasn't clear on what the time would be, or the estimated time to complete the project from notice to proceed, and the customer impacts on roadway closures, if that would, if the work would occur at night only, or at what times, and what roadway movements would be needed to accommodate the pavement overlays. Anyway, those were my concerns about the project. I express no view about the bid protest or the proposed bidders. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. And thank you, colleagues, once again. The first step before us today is to take action on the protest submitted by Galati Brothers. Based on the information presented by staff, we need to take an action with regard to the protest and decide whether or to accept or reject it. Is there a motion to accept or reject the protest submitted again by Galati Brothers Incorporated relative to contract number 2022 B114?
Madam Chair, I'll move we reject the proposal.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Madam Secretary. A roll call, please.
Thank you. We have a first and second to reject the protest submitted by Gelati Brothers. I'll start with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Parr is absent. Director Rabbit's absent. Director Thier. Thank you. Vice Chair Maston is absent. Chair Garbarino.
Yes.
Thank you. President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to go down to the pro tem members. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
And Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Thank you. You have 8 ayes.
Thank you. That protest is then rejected. I'll just make a personal comment. You're the only one in all of my years of living in Marin that has ever properly pronounced that last name. So good for you, Nicole. That's why I kind of followed your lead. You and my grandmother. Wonderful. Now we will return to the staff recommendation. Colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 3? Thanks, Holly. To approve of actions relative to award of contract number 2022B114 to Argonaut Constructors. And may I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Roll call vote.
Thank
please.
you. Voting on item number 3, Director Cochran.
Yes.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Parr is absent. Director Rabbit's absent. Director Thier.
Yes.
Vice Chair Maston is absent. Chair Garbarino.
Yes.
President Terrio.
Yes.
And pro tem members, Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
And Director Rodoni.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 8 ayes.
Great. Thank you all. The motion passes. We will now move on to item number 4 on the agenda. Yes, Holly.
Madam Chair, I have a conflict of interest with respect to item number 4, so I'd like direction from our attorney. Am I to leave the room now?
Exactly.
And you'll come and find me?
Yes.
Okay.
All good.
Thank you.
All good. Okay. You might find a warmer room, but you got to come back. I'm not complaining. We will move on to item number 4 then, which is to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2017B15. Golden Gate Bridge Toll Gantry Design Services with AECOM. The staff report begins on page 7, and Ava will present this report. Ava, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Garbarino. The report on the agenda on number 4 presents staff recommendations for actions related to the design of the Golden Gate Bridge toll gantry that will support a new all-electronic tolling system. The limited vertical clearance and configuration of the existing toll booth cannot support the new toll collection technology. So a structure called a toll gantry must be constructed at the toll plaza to support the new AET equipment. In March 2017, the district entered into a contract with Capsch Traffic.com to provide software and hardware for a new toll collection system to be installed on a gantry, to commission and initiate operations of the system, and to prepare a toll equipment installation plan for inclusion into the toll gantry construction documents. In July 2017, the district awarded professional services agreement 2017 D15 Golden Gate Bridge Toll Plaza Gantry Design Services to AECOM. The scope of AECOM services includes conducting geotechnical investigation for the new toll gantry foundations, to develop conceptual, architectural, and structural designs of different toll gantry structures, to develop detailed design for the selected toll gantry architectural design, and to prepare construction bid documents for the toll gantry construction. In April 2018, the Board of Directors approved the architectural design concept for the toll gantry, and this is shown in attachment A to the staff report. Following this approval, AECOM proceeded with the final design. In February 2021, when the gantry design was approximately 95% complete, CAPSH informed the district that their previous AET system design did not provide full traffic coverage at the toll plaza and required placement of additional devices on the gantry. This change required the district to request that AECOM revise the gantry design to accommodate the additional equipment. The change to the gantry design was beyond AECOM's scope of work and budget, and AECOM has requested $99,848 increase in the professional services agreement budget as a compensation for this additional effort. Then in 2022, the contract with CAPSH was terminated, and it was decided that the district would look at other available tolling systems. This requires an involvement of AECOM to coordinate the toll system evaluation and coordination with the gantry design to determine how the gantry design should be modified to make it more generic. As of now, it is specifically designed to accommodate CAPSH systems. So we want to make it more generic, so it will allow installation of one of the alternate systems on the gantry when such system is selected. Engineering staff requested and AECOM has provided cost proposal for this work in amount of $191,814 for the additional scope of design services. Engineering staff has reviewed both the request for additional $99,848 to compensate AECOM for the out-of-scope services and the $191,814 proposal for revisions to the toll gantry design to make it more generic for different toll equipment systems. Staff has determined that these amounts are reasonable in terms of the consultant's budget, labor hours to perform the covered scope of services, and consistent with AECOM's audited labor and overhead billing rates. The District Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Administrator has determined that small business enterprise and DB participation for the proposed 7th amendment to professional services agreement with AECOM is not anticipated at this time. There are sufficient funds in the project budget to finance the proposed $291,662 total cost of the 7th amendment to PSA 2017-D15, and staff also recommends that a contingency of $29,170 be established for the 7th amendment. This will amount to the total amount of $320,832, which will be covered from the existing budget. I need to add that the way the professional services agreements are structured is that AECOM will be compensated for actual time expended and expenses incurred. And I need to add that because uncertainty what will happen during the review of the different tolling systems. It may be necessary. We will monitor the progress of work by ACOM, and if there is necessary to further amend the agreement, the staff will bring it to the committee and the board for action. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any questions the committee may have for me.
Somewhat concerned that the original design was so specific to CAPS that it didn't permit us already the flexibility to seek other service providers that would effectively have bound us to CAPS, to a single provider for a long term, unspecified, but a long term, and made it difficult to get out, as in fact it has proven to do already earlier rather than later. So I'm hoping that in similar circumstances in the future, we will always go for the more flexible and adaptable design.
I think
Jennifer is not here, but yeah. Would you
want to say anything?
Sure. Are you talking about the design of the toll system, or the design of the gantry?
Gantry design for the mountain, which is, I guess, what the issue was.
So what the group is putting together is a gantry design that would be more flexible.
I understand.
So so we will do that in the future. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you once again. Any other questions or comments from directors at this time? No. That concludes the discussion on item number 4. Before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
There is, I believe, Mr. Pilpel would like to speak on this item. Justine, is that correct?
That's correct. Only David.
Okay, David Pilpel again. So I like the photos in the attachment in the staff report, and I'm sure it's slightly off topic, but I hope that there may still be a way to keep either the clock or some of the Art Deco elements of the toll booths and the overall toll plaza that may be lost with the gantry only and the lack of toll booths in the future. I'm not suggesting keeping the toll booths, but I do like the Art Deco elements. Again, I'm sure that's slightly off topic. I have no objection to the increase in the PSA funds for AECOM. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, David. Colleagues, may I have a motion now on agenda item number 4 to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2017B15?
Also moved.
Great, and I think I heard another voice over there. Great, as a second, if that's okay. Thank you. Amaret, may we please have another roll call vote?
Thank you. Starting with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Parr is absent. Director Rabbit's absent. Director Thier is outside of the room. She's not here. Vice Chair Maston is not in the room. Let's see. Chair Garbarino.
Yes.
President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Hernandez. Aye. Director Hill. And Director Rodoni.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 7 ayes.
That motion passes, and can we alert Holly to come back into the room now before we move on to item number 5? Okay.
There's that.
Great. We will move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the discussion and possible action relative to the naming of a new ferry vessel. The staff report begins on page 15, and Michael Hoffman, Deputy General Manager of the Ferry Division, will present this. Michael, go ahead.
Good morning, members of the committee. In September of last year, the district began work with a naval architect firm to design a new ferry that meets the recently adopted California Air Resource Board requirements for commercial harbor craft. The project is approaching the stage where our firm will begin to submit plans and drawings to the United States Coast Guard's Marine Safety Center for approval. The district should have a name associated with the new ferry vessel prior to beginning the process of plan submittals. Item before you today requests the Board of Directors discuss and consider selecting the name for our new ferry vessel. The current fleet of 7 vessels is named after the 6 counties that make up the district and the Golden Gate Bridge. Staff discussed possible names for the board consideration, eventually landing on 3 sites of significance within the boundaries of the district. The proposed names are the motor vessel Salt Point, the motor vessel Olompali, and the motor vessel Point Reyes. Staff acknowledges that should the MV Olompali be selected, since it is an indigenous site of the Coast Miwok tribe, we would need to reach out to the appropriate tribal council. Marketing put together a survey to voluntarily poll ferry division employees for their naming preference among the 3 selected names. The survey was conducted by sending out an email with a hyperlink to the survey, as well as posting of QR codes in the break rooms to engage those employees who may not have district email accounts or may not frequently monitor those accounts. Of the 104 ferry employees, we had 63 responses, and the results can be found in Table 1 of the staff report. As you can see, the MV Point Reyes scored the highest with a ranked choice score of 2.33, followed by the MV Olompali at 1.95 and the MV Salt Point at 1.71. With that, staff recommends the board consider the name choices and engage in a discussion to select the name for official filing with the United States Coast Guard Vessel Documentation Center. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this item.
Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. And Dennis, is there anything that you would like to add?
Just that historically, the Bridge District has always chosen a place name, and staff thinks that's an appropriate path to continue down. And there are, unlimited number of choices virtually within the counties that comprise the district and place names. And so we went through a collaborative process at Ferry where Ferry staff developed some names, and then they polled Ferry staff. And even though my choice isn't number 1, that's okay, because it should be something I think that staff has a role in, since they'll be the ones that will be on the vessel daily once it's in service. So with that, though, staff recognizes that it's a pure discretionary item for the board, and that if you have some consensus today, that's great. If not, we'll bring it back again next month, but we would not want to wait too long before we have a name that's selected for the vessel so that we can submit it to the Coast Guard. But we, as staff, support the use of place names that may have meaning to different members of the community.
Thank you, Dennis, very much. I'll open up for discussion among my colleagues. Yes, go ahead, Jerry. Great.
I've been involved in naming issues before. We did a prison in Northern California, and we put it out to the public. We had over 1,000 suggested names, and Senator Keene and I ultimately picked Pelican Bay as the name of that prison. I realized that the employees had picked these names apparently, and did that. My wife likes the name The City. She grew up in Oakland, and anyone that was going to San Francisco would say they're going to the city, and that was it. Another suggestion that might be available would be the capital or the county seats of each of the 6 counties, except it runs into a problem with Napa, because Napa is Napa. So that might be out. But anyway, my suggestion would be that we go further and have the public. I'm sure we've got the riders of the vessel, in addition to the employees. The riders of the vessel may have some good thoughts also.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Anyone? Holly?
I had a question for staff. This is the first time naming has come up since I've been on the Golden Gate Bridge Board. So I would love to hear a little bit of history about how vessels have been named in the past and what have they been named after. And it would also be interesting, if this moves forward today, that's great. I'm not trying to stall this item, but if it does not move forward, it would be great to see a list of what the vessel names are for each vessel.
Sure. So I'll jump in. The first vessel that we ever operated was a used steel ferry boat that we bought that we put in Sausalito service called the Golden Gate.
Okay.
Then the district hired a landscape architect, and we constructed 3 monohull vessels that we refer to as the Spalding vessels, or the 165-foot long vessels. Spalding was the name of the naval architect. They were originally outfitted with gas turbine engines, and they've been repowered to be something much better after the gas crisis. But those were named after the three closest counties, San Francisco, Marin, and Sonoma. Then we didn't add any new vessels for quite some time. And then we added our first high-speed vessel in 1999. And that high-speed vessel was named the Del Norte. That was, I think, a nod to one of the counties. Looking at prioritizing the counties, I think it was a recognition that Del Norte was the first county in the district to vote to join the district, and then the first county to again vote to basically tax themselves in case the bonds were not adequate. The next vessel that we procured was a high-speed vessel in 2001 called the MV Mendocino. And then we had a couple-year hiatus on adding vessels. Then we looked at procuring a new ferry boat, and our prior ferry manager, Jim Swindler, very wisely and astutely found that we could buy 2 used vessels and refurbish them for the price of less than 1 vessel. And so we acquired 2 vessels from Washington State. They're high-speed catamarans that had been in place for just about 1.5 years, and the locals voted down their sales tax that was subsidizing them, so they were parked for a couple years. So we acquired 2 vessels with very much Washington State names, and so the board decided to rename those for the 2 counties that had not yet had a vessel, or 1 county that had not had a vessel named after them. So one was named the Napa. By this juncture, the old Golden Gate was very tired, so it was retired. And so the other high-speed vessel was renamed the Golden Gate. So as it stands today, the 6 counties that are represented on the bridge board have a vessel named after them and the Golden Gate. And so this is the first time we've expanded to something beyond the names of the counties and the bridge district or the bridge itself, the strait. And so it does provide countless opportunities. And staff's one request is that you restrict it to place names, and that still provides countless opportunities to you. And with respect to a poll of our customers, that is something that could be done. It would take a little time. I would offer, though, that it may not be representative of the broader community because our ferry customers' demographics do skew slightly different from the broader Bay Area. It is a more affluent and a more white representation. So I do want to put that out there, that it's not it wouldn't be a poll into the broader community, it'd be a poll of a subset. And I just want that to be, you to be aware of that for your consideration.
Thank you, Dennis, very much. Jerry.
Thank you, Chair Garbarino. I wouldn't claim to be a naming professional. I mean, I would have never thought that Crest would be the #1 toothpaste in the United States. But, you know, as we think about a name, I was passing by Olompali State Park on the way down, and it's a Miwok word that means southern village or settlement or something like that. I remember from my days growing up in Nevada, going on field trips out there. You know, showing respect to indigenous culture and thinking strategically. I think it was Director Cochran, the last meeting was talking about marketing, or someone was, I believe it might have been you. The Federated Indians of the Great Rancheria have had a very positive effect up in Roanoke Park, and we have a wonderful relationship with them. They are in the process of expanding the gaming casino there at the Rancheria. They're doubling the size of the operations. They're adding a 3,500 seat venue. They're going from 3,000 gaming machines and slot machines to 6,000. They're adding another hotel. Roanoke Park has just cleared the California Surplus Lands Act, and we'll start moving dirt next year on that project at the downtown. The vast majority of people who go to the casino, I think it's like 65, 70%, come on buses up the 101 corridor. So it's not individual trips, it's organized groups of tourists that come up. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have some type of an experience where hundreds and hundreds of tourists could get on the Golden Gate Ferry called Olompali and land at the Larkspur Terminal, and we could hand them off to SMART. They'd probably kiss us on both cheeks, right? And get them up on a nice scenic tour up to Roanoke Park, and then with a little last mile delivery, get them to the casino. And we also have the greatest performing arts center in North America with the Green Center. That's just a fact. So in our discussions, as we've gone past the Surplus Lands Act, the Honorable Chairman is amenable to last mile delivery, talking to Roanoke Park about last mile delivery along the Smart Line there at the Roanoke Station. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I know as we're trying to, think about how we might shift our business model a little bit, tourism may be something that we're looking to capture. I'm not talking about a Disneyland tour here, obviously. This is something that needs to be done respectfully. And I want to thank the gentleman who talked about consultation with the tribe and honoring, the legacy that they have here in our community. But I just a passing thought.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm going to go beyond the passing thought and actually make a motion that we adopt the second option and name the boat the MV Olompani, given permission from the current representatives of the Coast Miwok. And if I can get a second, I'll talk on that.
Second. Great. Go ahead.
I believe the floor is mine, Director. You actually made a little of my case for me, but I'll go on a little farther. It is fairly common these days to offer in public meetings some acknowledgement of the prior inhabitants of this land, and I've always thought that was a little hollow, I'm afraid to say. But this is actually a thing that is quite concrete, is maybe not the right term, aluminum might be the right term, but that has a physical reality that honors the earlier inhabitants here, those who first applied the waters of the bay. And Olompali, I think, was a village that goes back more than a millennium of occupation, and a very prominent village for the Coast Miwok. So I think that goes a long way in the direction of honoring the first inhabitants here. One of my initial thoughts when a discussion came up among some of us of naming a vessel was of naming it after some of the First Nations. But in following the tradition of naming for a place, Olompali is a darn good option in that regard. So that there's a motion in a second, and I'm sorry. Then
Wonderful. No,
turn
that's
the floor
great.
back over
That's
to
all
you.
good. Yeah, Holly, go ahead. We've got more discussion. Were you first? I'm sorry, Bert. Okay, go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, relative to what the president said, I'm very much in favor of supporting our First Americans in the process, and I'm very excited that this is. I have compatriots who believe the same way I do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bert. Holly.
Thank you. So I wanted to echo the comments of Director Cochran and President Theriault. And I wanted to say that, honoring the first inhabitants of our land is something that this board should do and can do at this moment. And I'm very excited about what you said, Director Cochran, and what you said, Director. What?
Judy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's a great guy.
You know what? I'm looking at. Yeah. See, I need other glasses, right? Sorry.
A lot more hair than I do, so I'll take it.
Well, okay, you can take it, but anyway. So I think that this is a way that we can actually do this. I'm very excited about it. And unless it was named the Amaret or the Dennis, which is out of protocol, I think this is a great tribute, and I'm excited to be part of it. And Director, whoever you are, I think that this will be hopefully a welcome honor and a welcome tribute.
I also thought we should name it the MV Amaret as well.
Yes.
Anyone else want to speak on this item? Okay, that concludes discussion on the item. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak?
We do have a public speaker, Justine. I believe David Pilpel would like to comment on this item. Is that correct?
That's correct. David, go ahead, please.
Great. David Pilpel again. So I agree that it should be a place name and not any individual. I was going to say something about Tamales or Tamales Bay and the importance of West Marin to early commerce in Marin County in the modern era. But the Olompali is a great name, and I'm fine with the motion. I support it. I think staff has done good work to do research among staff, and I think doing any public survey of riders or others is unnecessary. I would suggest that each vessel perhaps have a small plaque explaining its individual name and something about the fleet and the importance of the names of the fleet, and maybe some reference to the website with more history about the district and the ferry division, so that ferry riders can learn something when they're on board and not just enjoy the views and the trip and get where they're going. Those are my thoughts. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel, and there are nodding heads here about an explanation plaque. Thank you so much. So we have a motion and a...
Excuse me, Justine, this is Jim. I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Jim.
Certainly, Director
Thank you.
Nelson.
Yeah, everything everybody has said so far, I pretty much agree with. I too prefer the name Olompali. While the others are all place names, Olompali, which is also a place name, is directly connected to one of our indigenous Bay Area tribes, which none of the other ships are. I think it would be a great honor to their memory and a small recognition of their contribution to the Bay Area culture and history to name our new ship after the Olompali.
Thank you, Jim. Amarette, may we please have a roll call vote?
Great, thank you. We're voting on item number 5, and that is to approve the name for our newest vessel as MV Olompali. We have a first and second, and I'm going to start with Director Cochran.
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain. Kim?
That's not an option. That's not an option.
I found out the hard way.
That's right.
Well, I've got the Yurok tribe. It's the largest tribe in the United States, as far as I know, and they made a lot of contributions to everything. And maybe the idea, if this is what we're going to do, and if I'm going to vote yes, then I would like a future avenue to name after tribes from Del Norte County. So with that, I'll vote yes.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. All right, Director Conroy is absent, Director Parr is absent, Director Rabbits are absent, Director Thier.
Yes.
Yes.
Enthusiastically.
Thank you. Vice Chair Maston is absent, although thank you for commenting. Chair Garbarino?
Aye.
President Theriault?
Yes.
And we're going to move on to our program members. Director Giudice?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Director Rodoni?
Yes, and would request the coastal Miwok be added to the list for future names, locations.
All right, thank you. You have 8 ayes to forward it on.
And just a point of clarification, Madam Chair, the motion did also include the requirement that we obtain permission from the current representatives of the Coast Miwok.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you, Michael. We will now move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is to approve actions relative to award of contracts number 2023D 12901, Maximo Managed Services and On-Call Professional Services. The staff report begins on page 17 of your packet, and Chief Technology Director Fong Liu is here to present the report. Fong, go right ahead.
Good morning, Chair. Garbarino and members of committee and the board members. The item before you today for consideration is for the execution of contract number 2023-D-129, Maximo Managed Services and Maximo On-Call Professional Services. So a little bit history of Maximo. Back in 2009, the district implemented Maximo Asset Management Enterprise System. And the district has been continued using the system for tracking and maintaining its assets. This system is primarily used by bus and ferry. In addition, procurement, NTD, and state of good repair reporting, and it is in transitioning of bringing bridge division assets to the system. So why do we need these services? In 2018, the district was informed by Maximo vendor called was informed by Central Square Technologies that it will no longer host the data in Chico, California. In response to that, the district upgraded Maximo to its most up-to-date version and brought data back to what we called on-premise, which is the data center at the district. The district also contracted with a managed service provider in order to continue the key elements of maintenance and support for the system. The current contract ends in April 2023, and there is still a great need for continued service and support for this contract. In 2020, the district went through a Maximo strategic planning effort and came up with a Maximo strategic plan. In this plan, we identified goals and enhancement elements, reporting needs, ways to improve efficiencies, so on and so training, so on and so forth. The current management service provider has enabled the district to fulfill these needs and achieve these goals set in the Maximo strategic plan. But in order to accommodate and satisfy additional requirements on the plan and improvements and enhancements in Maximo system, we recommend we continue the services by this specific provider and also create a bench of providers that will satisfy our on-call requests. So in early 2023, the district issued an RFP. In this RFP, we identified two sets of goals. Primarily, the goals are to make sure the vendors would maintain a good on-premise infrastructure, again, data centers at the district. Also, good implementation of the strategic plan, the Maximo strategic plan, to be able to help build interfaces and maintain the interfaces we have between Maximo and our other enterprise systems. And also for things like system monitoring, training, data analytics, and reporting, so on and so forth. We received bids from 8 vendors. And out of these 8 vendors, we went through criteria screening, RP screening, based on their firm's qualifications and experiences, their personnel experiences, and their skills. We also went through criteria of their approach and understanding of our scope of services, their cost, and in consideration of all these factors, 4 of the 8 firms are what we believe are well qualified for being on the bench for this on-call services. So the 4 firms are A3J, Interlock Solutions, ICHS, DBA Maven Asset Management, and ZPro Solutions. So today, what's for your consideration for approval is to authorize the award of Maximo services in the relate to the contract number again 2023 D129-01 with A3J for not to exceed amount of $840,000 and 2, to authorize the award of on-call Maximo professional services for the district asset management in regards to the contract 2023-D-129-01 2023-02 for all these 4 following firms. So that is a not to exceed amount of $750,000. For financial impact, the requisite funds for these maximal managed service contract is included in the operating budget for FY 22-23 and FY 23-24. And the maintenance and support is for the maintenance support for year 2 and through 5 and future years are going to be allocated in the future district operating budget. The maximal professional on-call services contract is for a 3-year term, not to exceed amount of $450,000, with a 2 1-year options, not to exceed $150,000 per year, and this is for a total amount of $750,000. And this professional services contract funding will be provided on a as-needed basis. So this, again, all of this funding will be approved through will be allocated from the approved information systems in operational and capital fiscal year budget. So with that, that concludes my presentation to the committee, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Fong, and for the comprehensiveness of your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues at this time on this item? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
I was just wondering why there was no established DBE percentage.
Oh, yeah.
So the DBE was not
required for this contract. Although we did encourage all the firms to obtain the DBE participation, out of these 4 firms, ZPro actually is a certified DBE, and they may utilize a SD subcontractor during the
performance of the on-call contract.
For a little bit more.
Yes.
There are no federal funds involved in this project. If there are federal funds, we could legally have a DBE goal, but under state law, unfortunately today in California, we cannot specify a DBE goal on projects that are state funded. And toll funds are considered state or within state funds, and so we are legally precluded from having a DBE goal.
Okay. Are there any LBE goals within all of our counties, and is that a possibility or something we could look at?
For construction contracts, we could look at that. It does raise some challenges because we're a multi-county agency. And so the board has had some general discussions on that in the past. It's a little tricky because we're a multi-county agency. So, Maximo is something that is used in Santa Rosa, it's used in San Rafael, it's used in Larkspur, and soon at the bridge. And so since it's a multi-county thing, that might be a little tricky. But it's certainly a policy issue the board could agendize at a future meeting if it wishes to. San Francisco has a history with, local hire, things like that. And those can be rather lengthy discussions.
It can be, but to the extent that each jurisdiction has a policy for certifying LBEs, I think that might be a way to go about it, but I'd certainly love to see the board look into it at some point because, the local businesses within each of our jurisdictions are, paying into the tax base, and it would be nice to see some recognition.
Certainly. And, the earlier item, both of the construction contractors were, local, well-regarded union contractors here in the North Bay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you again very much, Fong. Anyone else with a question or a comment? My colleagues, before we take our vote on item number 6, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Justine, do you have any speakers for this item? We're on item number 6.
We have no speakers for this item. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Colleagues, may I have a motion then on item number 6 to approve the actions relative to contract number 2023D 129? Thanks, Bert.
I'll second.
Got a couple of seconds, all good, thank you. And Amaret, a roll call vote again, please.
Thank you. Voting on item number 6 with the first and second, starting with Director Cochran.
Yes.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Parr is absent. Director Rabbit's absent. Director Thier.
Yes.
Vice Chair Maston is absent. Chair Garbarino.
Yes.
President Terrio.
Yes.
Pro Tem members, Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Hi.
Director Hill.
Yes.
And Director Rodoni.
Yes.
All right, thank you. You have 8 ayes.
Great, thank you again, and that motion passes. Thank you, Fong. We will continue now on to item number 7, which is an informational monthly report from the board appointees on the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board, SMART. Since directors Parr and Rabbit are not here today, by default, I will make the report. And I'm glad, I know, Barb, you're out there and you're on my shoulder. And I hope I don't blow it. So what I would like to do as backup is send around the general manager's report, which Barb does a better job than I would and more fleshes out. I want you to memorize this, please. I'll pretend. Yeah.
Sure we can really-
We can't pass it?
I don't know that we can.
Oh, here it is. I can somehow get it to you another time then. That's okay. No, it's all good. It's good to be prudent. What was covered in our last board meeting on March 15th, and we are now meeting monthly, not twice per month, was the conclusion of the emergency bridge repair update at Brazos Branch. I can also happily say that on last Sunday and last Saturday, the butter and egg day resulted in a completely full train coming and going in and out of Petaluma. And word got out about that, and everyone was just all a twit. It was just wonderful. Work is also underway for pathway wayfinding, and SMART has put out an RFP for that purpose for the entire system. Also creating a 3-day commute pass monthly in order to better serve our customers. General Manager Cummins has made a number of speaking engagements to further embed himself into the community before the San Rafael Rotary, Friends of SMART, League of Women Voters, San Rafael Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee, Good Morning Healdsburg, and the North Bay Leadership Council, which will be giving him the, Barb, I don't know if you can help me, but the Light the Way Award on May 12th. And yes, I will have a table or two there, and all are welcome to help me fill out the table to honor Eddie. And finally, the future of freight was also discussed on our regular calendar. Some of the issues facing the planning for freight are a planning model, listening sessions to roll out, the development of freight service operation, the challenges, what accomplishments there have been, obviously the financials, and then potential goal setting and strategies. Are there any questions? Yes.
I know the egg connection to Petaluma, but what the heck was a butter and egg day?
Well, offline, it's really kind of a big party. Yeah, and it honors, right, Dennis? You've been probably a part of it. It honors the heritage of Petaluma.
Petaluma was the egg chicken
Capital of the world.
Mine still come from there, by the way, at the farmer's market.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's been going on since the
many years
beginning of time. Yeah. So it's very well attended, and gratefully SMART was able to deliver folks there. Okay, God forbid there should be any other questions on that report. I'll still ask. And that concludes the discussion on that item. Before we move on, Barb, did you want to say anything?
Justine, I'll turn it over to you for any public comment. At this time, Director Parr, you're welcome to speak under public comment if you'd like to add anything.
Director Parr, please use ** to unmute yourself, and then you can speak to the room. There you go.
Hi, Barb.
Go ahead, Director Parr. You just need to also unmute your phone, your own phone. You're not coming through. We seem to be having some technical difficulties,
Okay.
so.
Well, Barb, I hope you can hear us. We all wish you well and a speedy recovery. I know you also missed this meeting too, but you asked that I specifically report about the butter and egg day and the full train. So check that box. I did it. All good. So once again, that concludes that item. There's no action required for that item, so we will continue on to item number 8, the status report on engineering projects, which begins on page 23. And Ava will present her report. Ava, go right ahead.
Chair Garbarino, members of the committee, my written report is for you, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Comments? None. Thank you once again. And again, there is no action for this item either. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item or address the committee under item number 9, which is public comment?
Justine, we have no other speakers in the room. Do you have anyone who would like to address the committee under item 8 or 9?
We have no other speakers on items 8 or 9. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you all. We've reached the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Bird. Thank you, Terry. Hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee. Thank you, colleagues. The time is 10:19.